All right, everyone. Again, we are now gonna do another No Gi Required podcast. This is our first one on the road. Here with me always, my two brothers, Jay Zeballos and Mike Zeballos.
There's a little bit of Mike.
Yeah, you can see there. And I think I'm very excited. We're very anxious in a good way to be able to do that. And I think we provide so many amazing footage for people actually to see on our YouTube channel. We're gonna be going now and talk to a legend in the martial arts, Guru Dan Inosanto, which I know everybody knows who he is and know what I'm talking about. We're gonna go to a little bit of history of his life, and we're gonna be with him for quite some time and enjoy it, because it's a very precious moment for all of us that love martial arts, and especially talking to him, which is an incredible human being, someone who opened the doors for all of us to do what we love. I'll see you guys on our podcast, No Gi Required OTR.
On the road.
Here we are. Let's do this. Guru Dan.
Take the mask off.
Exactly, you can take it. Nice to see you, sir. Thanks for allowing us to be here.
Good to see you. Good to see you again.
And you're the first one on our new edition of No Gi Required podcast.
Wow.
On the road.
I feel honored.
And the most successful one, I have no doubt.
Okay.
It's just great that we were able to this is the Mecca, you know. So to give a visual
It is.
recording of the podcast is great.
We have to teach outside, but
We do.
we're going to get inside.
Let's go and sit down.
Okay,
inside
let's
and
do it.
have a conversation. All right, everyone. Today to me is very special. I have someone here which I always look up as a martial artist. It's also our first No Gi Required podcast on the road, and could not have someone better than Guru Dan Inosanto to be our first one. It's incredible since I arrived in America, even back as a kid in Brazil, watching the movies and see this gentleman over there in action, and suddenly come to America and not knowing much and start to finding out things and end up meeting a living legend in martial arts, Dan Inosanto. Thanks, Dan, for
Thank you, JeanJacques.
for giving us that opportunity.
Thank you.
Also here with me I have my brother Jay Zeballos.
Always a pleasure.
And Guru Dan, I have so many questions for you, and I want to go back and when did you get involved with martial arts? How old were you when you realized, and it's like, man, I want to do martial arts, or my parents put me to do martial arts? How that path starts with you?
For me, it started right after. It had to be 1946, right after World War II, and my uncle came back from the war. I think it was 46. And he sort of lived with our family for about a year before he went on his own. He was Vincent Evangelista, and he was trained in Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, Judo, and an art called Tei from Okinawa. He was black belt in, I think, in all three. Tei they call it later on Karate, but at the time they called it Okinawan Tei. So that's my first education with my uncle right after World War II.
And on following that, what that impact as a child have on you, start doing martial arts and it's different styles? How was that for you growing up and getting involved in the early days with martial arts?
Well, I think for me, when I was growing up, it was very new. Martial art wasn't really taught. So it was something, I actually didn't want to do it. My father wanted me to train with my uncle. And the first thing he taught was very old-fashioned judo Japanese and Okinawan Te. They call it Te. They didn't. Then later on, Okinawan Te became known as karate, but the Americans pronounce it karate. So they say Te, Okinawan Te or Te.
And does that have an impact on you as growing up and have as a martial arts kind of become part of yourself too?
Yeah, I think so. I think with the encouragement of my father and my uncle Vince, they wanted me to take it because it would give me discipline, according to my father. He said, "Marsh, training that is good for him." So he had my uncle Vince or Vicente teach me.
Now, I think we all have some in our lives, especially growing up in martial arts, kind of a turning point. When did you realize, when you that, man, I love martial arts so much, I think I want to do that forever, I want to live off that. When did you realize this kind of start getting into you?
I think for me is when I got out of the military, 1961, and I just liked studying different arts. I found out through studying different arts, you understand a lot about the country. So for me, it was like learning about the country. It's like if you study a martial art from Japan, you get to understand the culture. If you study Chinese martial art, you learn about something about the culture, which gives you, I think, an appreciation for that culture, you know.
Yeah, I never thought about that way, but yeah, that's true. Here we are, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. You get to know a lot of the culture of Brazil. But do you remember on this whole process of be with martial art, when did you open your first school?
My first school, actually by myself. I taught usually for Ed Parker, who taught Kempo Karate. In fact, he used to call it Kempo Jiu-Jitsu.
Yes.
Then it became Kempo Karate Jiu-Jitsu. So it's sort of like a mixture of what was brought from the martial arts of Hawaii. Hawaii is a very mixed Asian population. You know, you have Korean, you have Japanese there, you have Chinese, you have Okinawan. So he brought the art of Kempo to the United States. And so I taught mainly for Mr. Parker.
That was your first experience as instructor?
Yes, 61. I was teaching for Ed Parker when I was what they call white belt with 5 tips. Because he was getting a program. So I did a lot of the teaching for his beginning classes. I wasn't even a brown belt yet, but the organization was building up. So I taught from him as a white belt. And then I finally got my brown belt after a while. But I taught from him as a white belt. And then I think for about a month, and I was made a brown belt, what they call you get 3 stages of brown belt in Kempo.
What was he like at Parker? I studied Kempo, so he was somebody.
For me, Mr. Parker was like a father figure. So Mr. Parker, I really enjoyed his teaching, and because it was very new. There was very few arts. The Japanese arts were here, the Koreans were sort of here, and then you had very few Okinawan school, except for Gordon Derisolos. But Mr. Parker, I really enjoyed. I liked his personality. I liked the way he taught. And for me, he was, although he's just a little bit older than me, he's sort of like a father figure for me. So I really enjoyed learning from him and teaching for him. I started teaching with him even when I was just barely beginning, because I had trained in Fort Campbell. So I think that's why he kind of let me teach the art.
When did you thought, like, I want to have my own school. I want to start.
That came, when Bruce Lee came here, I started training with Bruce Lee in 1964, and I was still teaching in Kempo at the same time. So I was cross training. I always like to cross train 2 or 3 or 4 systems, which I know is not proper by some systems because they don't like it when you cross train. But for me, I think I realized I wanted to teach as probably in '84. But I always wanted to teach for other people at that time. So I taught for Bruce Lee School 67, 68, 69, until he officially closed it in February of 1970.
I'm sure you get that question for a lot of people. And I think you will be one of the few ones that living so close, know Bruce so close. How is him on his everyday as a friend? Because we all know him as in front of the screen, as a martial artist, a movie star. How is him as a regular person?
I got along with him well. You know, his personality is different to everybody. But for Bruce Lee, it was sort of like, although I'm 5 years older than Bruce Lee, it was sort of like he was my older brother and I was the younger brother. So I got along with him really well. I enjoyed it. I think in his lifetime he made only 3 instructors, you know, and both of them were like, I believe James was like 25 years older than him. He passed away of cancer. Taki Kimura in Seattle was my senior. I think he's like 20 years older than Bruce Lee, and I'm 5 years older than Bruce Lee. That's why we always joke, says we're following a child because we're much older than this person. But he was really, in many ways, you know, no one is without fault. You know, you can go down and you can pick. But for me, he was a real good instructor. You know, though younger than me, he was way ahead in years of knowledge. You know, he kind of liked everything. He drew from many different sources, and that's what he called Jeet Kune Do. Actually, it's really not a style. I think for me, it's an understanding that you need every art under a different circle, and then not everything 100%. Like, the way I explained it, if you go to every store, you get certain products from Kmart, you get certain products from Walmart and from CVS. So not every store has everything that you want.
Yes.
So you have to go to other stores. So martial arts sometimes is like that. Some stuff is better for, let's say, kicking, because it's a good kicking style. Others have very, very good hand system. Others, I think their weaponry is very good. Some schools are, the groundwork is very good, or the grappling is very good. I think, so every store has something to offer. So I think every martial art for me
because
has something to offer.
It's amazing to me is when you mention that every martial art style comes from a different country, has the whole cultural part involved. And every time I talk to you, I feel that you have such a rich knowledge to the world. Because I look into the wall, and as you just mentioned, how many different styles of martial arts that you practice? And you mentioned as a curiosity, but to me it's an ongoing learning process from the early days until today. You still do that.
Yeah, I think it's really good. I think I think even what works well for you, like even technique-wise, what works well for you when you're 30, sometimes you get 40, you play a different game on the ground, right?
For sure.
And 50, 60, so...
I guess you can almost like every decade, you change your style.
You kind of change your method and style. And your interests change. But you know what I really found out? I found out for teaching, each country has something, and you get to know cultures. Like if you know the culture of that art, you understand that culture. And I think it promotes better understanding between people. Like if you want to know something about a country, then study something. Their music, their art, their dress, you know, the culinary, their dancing arts, the music, that draws you closer understanding to that culture. And that promotes, in my opinion, world harmony. I know that sounds crazy.
Oh, no,
but
no.
for me,
I think
when you appreciate a culture through usually their food, their dance, their music, their physical arts, or what they call culture arts. And if you want to know, you get an appreciation. Like after the Vietnam War, people go, "Hey, there's a Vietnam restaurant," and they go, "Well, I'm not going to go to Vietnam." But and I go, "Well, the food's pretty good." So you get to understand the Vietnamese culture through their food. And other people, you might appreciate that culture or country through their music?
It's very common in Brazil when people arrive at your house. It's always something being cooked. The smell of the food in the house, it's something that welcomes people in. It's very common in Brazil. You walk in, it's like, man, it smells so good. And right away, as a host, to invite that person, hey, you want to have lunch? You want to come in? And
food is a good way to understand culture and appreciate cultures. Because if you can appreciate their food, then you sometimes appreciate something else in their culture.
I know I might get the answer or not, but which one is your favorite style of martial arts?
That was my question.
Which one brought to you something that I was improved? Because I always see you constantly improve on your teaching method. I know you have your foundation, but it's very interesting because you practice still so many different styles.
I think it's like food. Can I use food, right?
Please.
Some days you feel like eating Chinese food. Some days you might feel like eating Korean food. And the next week you might have Mexican food, right? And the next week you might have Mediterranean food. And then you might have Italian food. And then you might have German food. But if you try to compare it, I think you'll lose it. If I said, okay, only eat Filipino food, I think you would get very tired within a week. But it's if I feel like I like Mexican food. I'm not Mexican, but I love Mexican food.
Making me hungry.
So,
We're going to have lunch right after this, guys.
and so I like Italian food. I probably have a little Italian.
Did you feel knowing so many different styles that make you better on your own style in terms of teaching and understanding?
I think so. When I learn different arts, I keep it within the discipline. I think it's really good to blend and your personal art. You got a personal art, and then I think you should always keep your style.
You have your touch
to
your teaching method, but you observe a lot of the other instructors.
Teaching method, I like, there's some styles are very formal. You can't even see where you're sitting.
You have to be very...
They sit in the horse. That in my generation, I don't think people have to do what they... In my generation, if you learn Kung Fu, example, you sit in that horse for like 30 minutes, and then if they like you, they'll teach you something. But I don't think people have to go. With internet now, you can go online. I used to travel all the way to San Francisco and stay there on a Saturday and a Sunday, and then drive back to LA. That was a lot of good Filipino instructors were at that time. So you kind of learn, and they did that with the Chinese martial arts. But I went off the subject. I think.
No. I want to ask you here. Let's see. I want to see if we can say how many different styles actually you did practice, and how many you still do practice in today's time.
I think.
Let's see, because I see the pictures on the wall. It's incredible. Like, I don't know. Look.
Yeah, there's pictures and all the diplomas and certifications.
It is amazing because I come to your school. To me, it's like a reminder and appreciation for the prior generations of martial arts that were here before myself, and I'm sure the path for you in the beginning of your teaching was a lot more challenge than the path that I have for myself today.
It's so.
How much was it acceptable teaching martial arts in the early days? How did people looking into this? Oh, martial arts.
I think people were very style orientated at that time. They're either Korean, Japanese, a little Okinawan, and then the Chinese at that time period were still not teaching non-Chinese. I think Bruce Lee broke that barrier down in 1961. The other one that broke that barrier down was Professor Art Wong, who was also my Kung Fu teacher here in LA when I came out of the military. So they broke that barrier down so we could train. Before, I remember with Professor Wong, I think I'm the fifth non-Chinese student he had. Fifth, maybe sixth.
It was more like divide this way.
You come back then. In my hometown, there was another man named Lee, not Bruce Lee, and I'm his first non-Chinese student.
Man, that's...
So at that time, I think martial art was different. I think now you
see such a diversity today of people in your school.
culture. And then I think people cross-train more. And now most schools in the United States now use Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu because their grappling was not strong. I mean, it was strong. When I say strong, it was they introduced that part of the ground, which I would say 90% of the population in America was unaware of.
What is your secret to have that desire to constantly keep learning and always be such in a good mood, like going for different styles? As a student too, we have some frustrations like, man, I want to do so much better in this, but it takes a little time. But what keeps you?
I think curiosity, and I found out it was good for health. And it helped me to understand, I know it sounds corny, but it helped me to understand other cultures. Appreciation for our cultures, not even just straight martial art wise. Like I said, you appreciate a culture to their different food or music or dance. And with the martial art, I go, wow, it's very interesting that every culture has a martial art, practically.
It's so amazing, Dan, because we're not kids anymore. And you're someone who are worldwide well known as an incredible martial artist, an amazing human being. And now I understand why everywhere I go and I say your name, it brings a smile to people's face. They're always like, do you know Guru Dan Inosanto? And I said, man, I kind of know him pretty well. And it was incredible as the feeling that you get from people. And looking to this, you went through so many decades. What would say was, besides evidently the technology that we have today, in all your years in martial arts, what was the hardest, the most difficult time martial art had on this whole process of you from beginning until today? Always the most difficult time.
I think when you first learn something, I think everything is difficult. If you go from one discipline, their system might be based more on strength, or they might base it more on deception, or they might base it more on speed. So you have to adapt, right? And some base it more on close quarter hands, others base it on long range hand, others base it on kicking, others combine the kicking and the punching. Others, they're good in locking. A lot of styles lock, but they didn't have the flow. You know what I mean? People learn locks,
yes.
Wrist locks, elbow locks, shoulder locks, but there wasn't a flow of continuity. That's, I think, what Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu brought into the country was that continuity on the ground. It's like a whole new world. And that's why I highly recommended Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu to my students because I thought it was on a different level on the ground. I learned locks on the ground, but Bruce Lee taught me locks on the ground, but we never contest it. We just let him do it and go like that, but we never try to get out of it. So they didn't have that.
The transition movements to get from point A to point B.
Yeah, we
have already the movement, the ending, but no, the process.
But we just let the person.
Yes.
We never try to contest it. We didn't have the flow, that took Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu to come in the country. That's why it's on a different plane. I remember when trying to tell a lot of my students, well, you should take this, and they go, so I already had Jiu-Jitsu. I said, no, it's a little bit different. So they didn't understand the flow. And I think it's true with the Filipino martial arts. They go, Dan, you really had this style. And so why would you take a style from the northern Philippines when the styles in the central Philippines are superior? It went that far. And I go, well, I think I like some of this stuff they taught me in the north. Then you hear this stuff, because the Philippines is broken down in categories of north, south, and central styles. And that's almost like the segregation between white and black. Because they really believe that their style is better because it's from this side of the Philippines as opposed to the central side.
How is that changing, or I guess our self-improvement in teaching for you? When you kind of felt like, because I trained several different styles of martial arts, it did improve in my base foundation style of teaching and understanding even better. How is that for you to bring so many things and kind of put in what you already do and what you're already well known for?
it brings a common denominator. You look for things that work. So I realize that what works for one individual may not work for another individual. Like some martial arts, they're more based for strength orientated, or they might be based more on deception and speed. It's pretty much like a running back in American football.
Yes.
Some guys have speed.
You did play football.
Yeah,
That's what I heard.
And some people have power. They're a power runner. Then you have a deceptive runner, and then you get a person who's good at all three. You know, he's a deceptive runner, he's a power runner, and he's a speed runner. And you kind of pick up from different people tactics, right? If you're a big running back, you're usually going to be power speed orientated. If you're a small running back, it's based more for speed and agility and maneuverability, right? I call it a person who's speed, sometimes he doesn't have the deception. It's really interesting. There was a guy in Minnesota one time named Paul Gill. He said one time in Life magazine he was so slow, but when he was good, he wasn't a power runner, he wasn't a speed runner, but he was so deceptive. You know, he's like the Houdini on the thing. A lot of people don't even know who he is, but that's what comes in my mind because I remember him making that quote that he was a deceptive runner, but he was so slow he never wanted to be time in 100. So you have different people excelling in their specialty. And I think you learn everybody from everybody. That's their game. So you kind of learn that game, right? And then you try to add it to your game. And it's then different things. Like when I was young, everything had to be a flying sidekick. I look back at it now, and then you get around 30, you go, man, it's kind of hard to get up there anymore. You start going away from those flying sidekicks and flying spinning heel hook, right? Because there's only a certain time. So I start looking for arts that promote longevity. I think, I believe, with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I started.
Yeah, I was about to ask you, how did you end up walking into our school in the 90s?
Reputation was the most, you know. Before it was like, they were telling me, well, you could train with the Machados, or you can train with the Gracies. That was in that day it was the Gracies and the Machado. You either went to either
it was in the middle 90s.
Yeah, so I think with.
Who was the first guy to teach you there? Was Higgin?
Higgin was my first teacher.
Higgin?
Yeah. And they asked him, why
did he know who you were?
I don't think he was aware of who I was. But I just enjoyed him. And they go, maybe you should pick a smaller Machado. I said, no, he has all these little things I can do. You know, I thought, so I picked him. And then later on, before Carlos moved down, my main instructor was Carlos and Higgin. If Higgin didn't teach me Carlos. And then Higgin was nice enough to bring, like when I had privates, sometimes he'd bring a student to help me. Maybe bring 3 students, you know. Like when I rolled, maybe a student was so much better than me, one who was about equal, and then maybe one that I would probably be better than. So he was pretty smart, and he gave me little games. And then I had a really bad back problem. I thought that was 59, and it was so bad that I went to people, and then they gave me the machine. You paid $120 or $125, and the machine one was like this, like a shrimp, and one was arching. And then I started thinking, I'm already doing that, so I don't have to pay. So I just started doing.
Gave me that.
I got just doing these eddies and shrimping all the way down, and it strengthened my back. So I think for me, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu was holistic, and that it cured my back. I know that people say, no, you're going to get hurt, but actually it worked the reverse. It strengthened my back. So I think it was 59 I started. And I don't think I've stopped since, except for the pandemic. All I've been doing is solo exercises. All I'm doing is shrimping because I have don't touch this, don't touch that. And I go, whoa,
I know it's a hard time, but I tell that to my students that because of the martial arts background, we are above average in terms of dealing with a lot of frustrations, a lot of challenge in life, because we every day when you go to class, it's some kind of challenge that we face. And I think somehow we were better prepared for such a thing that no one knows how to deal with.
Yeah.
But definitely made us a little bit more strong on the aspect of, okay, I'm not the happiest guy in the world, but I think we can do a little bit better than most of people.
Yeah, you're right. I think when I look at the journey of the BJJ, it was so funny because people go, "When you studying with Higgins?" So Higgins said, "You study with some of my brothers." So I started studying with Roger, and then he taught me yoga, jiu-jitsu, and then I studied with John. And I've always made before I was taking, I think, 3 jiu-jitsu classes in a day. People say, "You're crazy. You got to teach it." But I just go straight from my lesson to there, and I think I kept that up there for
I'm jealous
5 years.
because my brothers taught him more jiu-jitsu than I did, because I live a little further away.
Further down. Although my wife in Lavon used to drive all the way to
I know,
there.
and train, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
That's
Let me ask you too, is in all this time, and I saw you did movies. How was that in your life? You did a few movies there.
yeah, I don't even think of myself as a movie, but yeah.
I know you had
got
a time that you did, because those movies I saw as a kid in Brazil.
I did.
Then I come to realize, like, man, I knew them before I met them. In a lot of the movies on the early days, which was the first martial arts movies. I think it was Bruce Lee was the first guy to
I
put
think
martial arts into
just
the movies.
game of
And
death. I did the thing. I think in the Green Hornet, I played. I doubled this actor named Mako, and I, did the gung fu at that time doing the picture.
You also fought Steven Seagal.
Yeah, I like that. The picture. It's not really my goal. The movies, but I enjoy watching them. I rather watch them than to be in it. But
also too, I noticed that over here and walking in the school, you have so many well-known celebrities that they come here and train with you and with some of your students. I can see a lot of people that came and train with you. They're producing, directing, stunt coordinators. They all have their environment. That was basically starting with you over here. Because I remember coming here one time and I met Denzel Washington. He was having a class, I think, with Jeff Amada.
yeah, Jeff.
How many of, if you can say the names of some of the people that came and ended up meeting with you, training with you?
Oh, I hope I don't miss anybody.
No. I can say a lot of them, but some of them that you.
Denzel trained a lot before. Before actors, Denzel can really do it.
Because I saw in the movie when the Book of Eli that he was with the stick and.
I think a lot of my students at that time, like so many people. If I just say one person, don't say another person, I would.
Oh, don't worry.
But anyway, 300. A lot of the students. A lot of my students went into that and they did it. Shosi does a lot of stuff too. So they all went into that type of thing. But so many different people studied. I got to work with Hinato and that little...
The red belt?
Yeah, the red belt. I thought that was kind of fun to do. Got to work with... I can't even pronounce it, Geobell or something like that. Yeah, so... That was kind of nice to work with him. Got to work. I can't even remember the names of the people now.
And you guys know that almost every celebrity out there came by and trained with Guru Dan, and a lot of people not only in front of the cameras, they also a lot of people that trains with him are behind the cameras as stunts, as directors, producers. You have no idea. Dan, one thing that is every time I come here for all the camps and seminars that I'm so fortunate to have the opportunity to be here and share the mat with you and learn so much. Mm-hmm. I think each time that I come here, I see you enjoy more and more teaching. It's incredible. Yeah. You teach so many classes, you teach so many people around the world. Because I know some of the martial arts, the people that they kind of burn out. But I come here and see you and your face and enjoy, and you can tell the students really like, and it's always something that, how or what do you do to keep that fire inside of you to keep passing on that knowledge?
I just like sharing, and then you teach others. You kind of teach yourself. So I think Socrates said, it says the highest form of learning is teaching, because when you teach others, you teach yourself, and that's what I found. And I found it's kind of it's a journey as you get older, because you don't possess the speed, and you don't possess maybe different coordination things that you have. So you get to appreciate different people more, and you get to appreciate the process of life, because I remember, because I taught PE for 20 years, and I was an English social study teacher at the same time. And I remember teaching PE. I remember when I was a young PE teacher, and at that time I would exercise with every class. I would do everything they did in the beginning, right? That changed, I think, when I got about 44. I go, man, I'm tired. So, would you be calisthenics? It changed then, because I realized I didn't have the ability. And then I made the mistake. I remember when I was a younger PE teacher, I used to demonstrate, like when I teach the long jump, I would long jump to kind of show that I was not too bad at long jumping, right? But as I got older, I go, oh my gosh, I can't make 20 feet anymore. I'm going under 20 feet. I'm not able to jump 20 feet. At least 20 feet was at least acceptable.
Okay.
I'm barely clearing the pit. So I said, then I went into visual aids, and I said, okay, this is a picture of one of the best high jumpers, because later, sometimes you can't do it. You don't possess the skill to do it. So you get better on visual aids, or you take the top person in your class and let him demonstrate. Because sometimes you don't have the ability to do it. I had something that was really embarrassing. I was on a parallel bar. I was in this thing called a kip. But I wasn't teaching gymnastics for 3 years, because I had this woman PE teacher who says, okay, I tell you what, I have to teach the girls flag football. So how about this? I teach your boys PE class. I'll teach them tumbling and tumbling, and you teach the girls flag football. So we did that, and then she got married, and then I realized, okay, this semester I got to teach gymnastics, and it was really embarrassing. I remember doing this kip and hitting the high bar. Boom, 7th period. I remember this. The school nurse, the vice principal, and the principal came out, and I go, what happened? And I said, I missed the bar. Then I realized, even that 3 years that I didn't do it, I lost that skill level to do it, So then sometimes you have to figure out to use a top person in your class to demonstrate it, because you didn't have the skill. Well, that's in PE. So martial art is kind of nice. You can hold on to some skills, and then if you don't have the skills, you get the best guy in the class to demonstrate,
What would you say to the people out there that dream one day to have their own martial arts schools, to the people that already have their schools, to the path or to keep themselves inspired? What would be something that you use on your own that keep every day you wake up in the morning looking forward to go and teach? Because every time I see you arrive here with so much energy, like that's the environment you like to be. That's the place. And what would you say to someone?
Well, we'll go off the track and then answer that question. I had an advisory coach. His name was Amos Alonzo Stagg when I was in high school. Mm-hmm. And if you look him up, Amos Alonzo Stagg is one of the most winningest coach in American football. So by the time I got to go under him, he was the advisory coach for our high school team. He's 89, and he just turned 90. And our coach says, he's going to spend 15 minutes today teaching you how to kick the ball, because he was teaching the kicking game. And I go, wow, I'm getting a private lesson with Amos Alonzo Stagg. And this is unbelievable, because he coached all the kickers on my high school football team, And sometimes I would hold, and sometimes I would kick. And then I did the kickoffs, and so he coached all the punters and the kickoff men and the conversion men. But he says the Amos Alonzo Stagg, what I learned from him is the highest form of that you can do. He thought that coaching, whatever the art was, is the highest form that you can give back to humanity.
That's beautiful.
Boy, that's very profound.
As far as
something.
building character and building humanity through a physical activity, be it football, basketball, jiu-jitsu, track and field, it's the highest form. He says you want to build, and then that stuck with me. I didn't realize how famous he really was because, I was young, 16, 17 years old when I went under this man. And then later on, I said, one time in an interview, he says, who influenced you as much as Bruce Lee? And I said, Amos Alonzo Stagg. And they go, was he a karate man or a judo man? They didn't know who he was.
But I think that stick with you, that carry on in your life and the teaching and everything.
He was 89. That's why I look forward. I hope I live to be that long. 89 and 90 when he taught me. He'd walk out there. He'd run a mile every day. His work ethics. And he says, teaching of physical activity is not. He's also one of the co-inventors of the man that invented basketball. Naismith, who invented basketball, was his student.
Man.
Together, they invented the game of basketball. Do you know how many people owe their living through basketball? Do you know how much money basketball?
It's incredible.
What they said, they put a peach basket. People didn't make it very much. So when they made a ringer, they had to get a ladder and take the basketball out.
Okay, let's open the hole here.
Right, and he played in the first, then later on they put a hole through it, and then he played in the first game, and that now basketball. But he's done so much. I think I never realized when I was under him, he is a tribute to 20 things in American football. The huddle is his. The reason why we wear football numbers on our jersey is because Amos Alonzo Stagg said you had numbers, so he made it numbered. The reason why we have a varsity letter in track and field or basketball, whatever, because they should have a letter. And they attributed like 25 different things. He invented the huddle. He's one of the inventors of the forward pass. I never realized that when I was under him. I sensed the greatness, but it was years later on, after I got out of, I was already teaching, and I go, what? Why was he so impressive? And then down with the internet, I go, holy smokes! He invented so many different things: the quick kick, the placement, the unbalanced line. If you look at his
and you were 16 when you
16 and 17.
And you still remember?
I still remember it because of the way he taught. He'd never yell. He never swore on the football field. He was just the complete difference of. I don't mind being yelled at, but
the way he was.
He's very firm, and to me, influenced me as much as Bruce Lee did.
Wow.
You guys didn't influence me. Your whole family influenced me. So
let me ask a good trick question. Trick questions for him. Which is your favorite Machado brother? You don't have to answer that.
I have an easier question. I think it's easier. So much of my own education, martial arts education, as I was growing up, was through you. I collect magazines, Black Belt Magazine, Inside Kung Fu, and I would every so often see an article with you introducing an art I'd never heard of. Like, I never knew about Savat. I heard about Muay Thai, I never knew about Savat. Silat, some of these other arts that were indigenous to different parts of the world. Was that part of your growth, was like actively going to places and exploring?
I like researching, because when you go into art, it's from a certain country, and you get to know the country, and then later on you say, well, hey, Indonesian martial arts is pretty good, and Malaysian art, and I like their music. So you go into something, it gives you a better understanding of that culture. Which I think, if people understand different cultures, I think there'd be less trouble in the world. I think martial art is a great vehicle for that. So
my follow-up is, today, all these years later, is there anything, are you still actively doing that? Is there anything that's under your radar that you still kind of explore?
I'd like to learn a little bit more about what do you call it, the Russian system. I think it's kind of interesting. For me, it's really been interesting, what Martin Wheeler teaches.
Okay, yeah.
I'm still interested in all the Indonesian arts and Malaysian arts, and I had an Indian instructor that taught me Lati. It's a form of Indian self-defense, mainly with the staff. So you kind of learn a little more about Indian and their culture. What I found out when you study that, I got to know the culture, which was, for me, was just as fascinating as their physical art. And I like Malaysian and Indonesian, and Philippines are pretty close, and Brunei, but the culture is a little bit different. So you go deeper, and then when you start thinking about that, then you start thinking, wow, then I can understand about more or less things that happen in history, like countries, because the boundary changed so rapidly, right? They, from ancient Syria to Babylon to, Mesopotamia, the Ottoman Empire. So that what happens to these countries, they grow. Even the Bible is really interesting, from ancient Judah, Israel.
Yeah.
So that changed many times from ancient Babylon to Syria. So I just find that fascinating, and that's why I like studying to the martial art, and then I study the history of that martial art, and I found it very fascinating. I mean, everybody's had a staff art. So what the Africans are, he just passed away because of COVID, Kalendi Eye, and I got interested in African martial art. I thought that's kind of interesting how they use dance in the martial art to learn. So for me, it was just fascinating learning an art from another country, and I didn't realize every country has some form of a martial art. It may be weaponry wise or empty hand wise, but I can't think of a country that doesn't have a martial art.
Is when you're teaching and you see the student came to your school, is that something that I think it's kind of personal, which each instructor might have, that you feel that how can you trigger the interest of that student, or what can you say to that student? How do you see the student? Which way you feel him more aggressive, less aggressive, afraid? And because each one that comes to our schools, they have a different purpose, almost.
Yeah.
A different reason they come in. Is there a way for you to define, have like your own way of bringing the people in? Because a lot of people are very shy, afraid to step into a martial arts.
Yeah, that's true. I don't, I know this sounds funny. I just pray. I know that sounds funny to people.
No, but
when I have a problem, I just take it to a higher source, and he seems to, for me, he seems to...
To me too, give me all the answers that I'm looking for sure.
For me, I don't know if I wouldn't wait for the question, but when I have a problem, I just take it to a higher source. Which I know that's going to sound funny, but
no, that's we all do it. I be honest, I do my meditation every day for half an hour. I'm by myself. Sometimes I'm sitting inside the car, and people are like, "Why are you not moving?" I do my meditation there.
Everyone's talking.
I feel like I'm reset my mind. And what is the feeling for you? Because to me, is when I put the gi on, it feels like I empower myself to something bigger than me. What is that for you, the beginning of your class, that you have the equipment, that you have the mood that kicks in or sets into you?
Well,
do you have any ritual that you do before teaching?
Yeah, I want to give the best that I can, knowledge-wise. Hopefully they will take the knowledge and use it to the best way for health, leisure pastime, possibly self-defense, So for me, it's like I said, I'm not, but I always take it to highest order. When I start class, I'm going to give the best of my ability and the best of knowledge that will help them grow. It's kind of corny, but
Guru,
that's the way I start.
I think martial arts in today's time need more of this.
Mm-hmm.
It becomes less mechanic and more philosophical in a way that actually improve the person. And that's why I'm saying when I come here, I see so many people with different backgrounds, and each year is more and more people that come here. And those are some of the few reasons, besides all of the reasons they have to come here to see you, is that feeling that you pass to all of them. It's incredible. That's what I'm saying. You always you're still enthusiastic as 50 years ago.
Yeah,
it's exactly the feeling
like
the energy that I come here and feel.
And you kind of really learn from your students. For me,
Every class.
I wish I thought of
class.
that.
Every class.
That's not bad. Sometimes I say, hey, can we do it that way? And I go, wow, that's even better than the way I taught them sometimes. So you kind of use that, and they help your growth. I think you learn by your students too a lot.
I tell my students, I see them doing technique, I steal that from them. I kind of mix it up a little, show back to them. It's like, wow, it's a great technique. It was just yours. It's just makeup, and that was your move.
That's pretty good because
I'm a good stealer with the technique. I see something, it's like, let me put a
really
little
do. You kind of learn by your students. The more different type of students you have, you learn it. The way you teach a very athletic person sometimes is different from a person who has less athletic ability. So you have to go back on the thinking board again to find out what works. And
I know you already mentioned. Is there any, if not more than one, I would love to hear quote that you carry with you, that you're thinking about sometimes or have in your life almost every day. You're thinking about something that you create or some you read somewhere. Is there any kind of quote that sticks with you?
There's so many, Jean-Jacques, but
just one, if you can, if you remember one that.
Well, from Bruce Lee, I kind of like the using no way as way, and having no limitation as limitation as far as teaching is concerned, and martial art wise, combating way. But I like that using no way as way and having no limitation
for life,
limitation.
For life itself. Right. It's
and you do learn from different people. I think sometimes teaching, they say, is the highest form of learning. Socrates said that, and I think it's true because the type of students you have, every time you teach, I think you get better at that subject matter that you taught. You can explain it better. Like in stick fighting, it would be like, okay, when you want to hit, you get better explaining, okay, when you hit that stick, you're not really hitting it like that. You're going to twirl up, you're going to make the swamp, and you get better explaining it. As before, you just do it, and people go, what the heck are they doing? So you get better on the word nuance, that how you can explain the technique. Because maybe in the first year, you can't explain it. But as you get better, you get to explain it because you had so many students. The more type of different students you have, they would teach it. The way you teach a person who's never done the martial art and he wants to start at 50, got to be just a little bit different from an approach from a young athletic person at 21.
Do you feel also teaching has to do a lot because I know it's the way we use our words are very powerful when we're teaching someone. Do you feel that has also in teaching or you're teaching the kind of words that you use?
Absolutely. The vocabulary that you have, the better vocabulary, you can express it so many different ways. I think that's important. Each instructor has their personality. If you try to copy somebody else, like I can never copy Bruce Lee because his personality is more outgoing. I'm sort of less imposing. Right? So your approach has to be different. It's pretty much, like coaching is very interesting. Like you got one coach, if you fumble a ball, you got one coach just swearing. And then you have the coach that makes you even feel worse. Can you fumble the ball on the 7-yard line? They scored. That's okay. Just go on the game, do your best. That makes you feel worse. I'd rather have the coach yelling and screaming at me. But it's sort of like that, I've experienced that. It's every coaching psychology is different, and they both get their job done. And some people adhere better to different type of coaching method.
Let me ask you too is, if someone wants to, in the years to come, to know, like, you wanted to be known by, what would you like to be known by? Because to me, you are part of the history of martial arts in the world for 100 years from now. It's, your name is there forever. But what would you like to be known for as a martial artist? Yeah. What would you like to?
I've never thought about it. You know,
because you already have the legacy of living, changing millions of people's life. You continue, because the moment that you walk into our school, without knowing, you create an incredible impact. Because we saw some of the students that knew who you were, and they just spread the word, and suddenly the following days, we, for no reason, was like, man, we have so many more new students coming in. Why is that? We have no idea. Then suddenly, like, who's this gentleman that came to our school? Then we realized who you were. You already left and has today an incredible impact. But I want to know, as you as a person, what would you like people to always think when they mention Dan Inosanto?
I've never really thought about it. You know, that's
I can tell right now, like, inspiration. You know, that's something that we stay.
would you like to remember that?
One of the
that
most,
I tried my best to teach it.
One of the most inspired people in the way martial arts, you know, and a good leader. I think we learn how to improve that as time goes on.
You know, it's so funny because when you look at your own life, you realize how much you didn't do. I don't know. And what you should have done.
But from outside,
yeah,
look
definitely
at you,
from the outside.
Like, man, look how much you did, you know?
You know, to be really honest, I'm going to be really honest, I never really thought about it, but it's usually for me, like, I've always felt lacking. And,
but our perception is a little different than yours in that aspect, because then, look around this school, oh my God. This is a mix of, it's a huge library, a museum, so many things here. So many other instructors that were touched by you and students. I mean, this is incredible. To follow up on that question, who's Dan Inosanto? Who are you? By your own words.
By my own words, a person probably who wants to keep learning, and hopefully my life might make another life better in their lifetime here on earth.
And that's what I'm saying. I already did.
My
life was changed
mine
by
too.
you know?
Mine too.
Thank you.
And Jay's been training jiu-jitsu with me for 20-something years, and he had your books. Some of the things that you've done in the past and continue to do so with the same enthusiasm. This is amazing.
Thank you.
This is amazing, Dan. This is amazing. I'm in my martial arts, but I want to hear that from you, because I see you as someone that way above right here, you know? And as you mentioned, it's like we're never trying to copy anyone. We're trying to learn and have our own steps in the martial arts. I just want to hear some kind of an advice from you to me. Something that, because you know all of us, the Machados, and I think it's such an exchange and beautiful to be able to get along so well, learn so much from you. I want to hear some kind of advice from you there. Yes. I want to put in the hot seat now, and you can pull my ear and say, hey, JeanJacques, you have to...
Where's the wisdom? I think it's probably to do the best that you can be with what God gave you, and to try to help people, to help other people. And I think that makes a more harmonious world when we do that, you know. That's basically what I would say, to live the best of your life to your God-given abilities, to help other people grow, and they will help you grow. I found that to be, if you help somebody, they sort of help you. I found that out for my students, because you can end up teaching them, and I think it's really good for an instructor. I think he should feel happy when he has a student that surpasses him. I think if you do that, you've done your job.
And I'm sure
every generation should get better.
You've done a lot of that for sure, and I'm witnessing that since the day when I got here. Guru, I have no words to say how thankful I am to have you walk in our school and invited us to walk into your school, myself and all my brothers, which definitely changed our lives for better.
Thank you.
I think I miss coming here in this school because of the energy, the history, everything that has here. Even if I don't do anything, just the fact that I'm walking in and that environment
Thank you.
has already that so powerful influence on myself. Well, thank you for that opportunity to share.
Thank you very much.
Some of the,
very much.
Thank you.
the amazing things, and I want people to know and understand that it is a lot of martial arts people out there, but it is also a lot, very few martial arts people there. And I think the knowledge that you had, the knowledge that you continue to pass to all of us, it's changed all of our lives. Thank you.
Thank you.
very much.
Thank
Dan.
you.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you so much. See this man here? This is very highly decorated in World War II. That's Leo Huron. They came into the Philippines there, before MacArthur landed. That's my wife. That's how. When I look at these pictures, it's like going through a time machine.
Oh yeah.
It's so funny when you see pictures of isn't it funny? You see pictures, take a family album, and you look and say, "Oh my gosh, can't believe it! I was that young. Can't believe I had that much hair."
I wanted to teach me technique. Remember we did that with Cookie? She always used to, hey, show. Remember we did this one, Guru?
Yeah. Oh, which one do you want to do? You pops
this.
out. You come up and lops out.
Then here, right?
That was one. Yeah, you got it.
Then go this way.
Right. The other one you pops out, and then you tap this hand instead because I didn't go across the center line.
Which
tap
oh,
it.
this
Yeah.
way. Okay.
So the
Then
first
go
one, I go across, you grab it
Then
here.
here. Boom.
Second one, I don't go across, you tap it here.
And this way.
Right. Third one, you pops out. Right. But now I go here, so you wedge.
Okay.
And you slap this one.
Oh, this one in.
Yeah. Or this one in.
Okay, let's do it again. This one.
One,
Go
two,
one.
and I push it here,
This is
wedge
it.
it, and you could pull it,
And go.
or you could slap it.
Okay. One more
One,
time. One,
Two, wedge, slap this, and hit this.
Boom. Okay. One more
Or
time.
two. Right. The other one is 1, 2. You wedge. You go forward this far, and no arm straight, and slap that.
Oh, this.
Yeah, those are all the different ways. You already know that, don't you?
I use in Jiu-Jitsu a lot of this.
This one?
A lot of this touching. To
Wow.
control. Somebody holds with the gear.
That's pretty
I use
good.
a lot of,
Yeah.
a lot of them playing guard.
You get picked up a lot. Now.
But man, look at this. It's incredible. This something so amazing. We have an incredible privilege and honor to be among all these martial arts styles that you've been learning. Look, and it's amazing to me is when you mention the cultural side. A lot of people do not understand, and now they will realize that each style of martial art that comes from a different country brings a lot of their cultural.
It promotes what I call understanding around the world.
If it wasn't for Jiu-Jitsu, I don't think you would know about acai.
Yeah. Yeah. That's how do you know I have that?
Now you know, acai was brought by Brazilian guys.
That was a Jiu-Jitsu. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
And it's interesting too that we talked about music because that's part of the.
Yeah. It makes them work harder. You know, some music can put the mood.
Mm-hmm.
I play slow music.
Yeah, so on your warm-up, you always have music.
Right, and then if I wanted to really play it to make it more aggressive. So music can...
And you learn to play a lot of those instruments.
I learned musical instruments through martial art. Isn't that funny?
And those are...
And the capoeira people.
the British
Yeah.
So you guys gave Asahito to the world, you gave Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and capoeira. You get 3 things. And he gave the bossa nova.
But yeah, and Brazil is well known for drums too.
Yeah.
They play drums like incredibly.
The drumming is really good. They do that a lot in Kali because it instills different drum beats.
It does help the movements, right?
It gives the rhythm. Yeah.
Well, it's no words to thank you, Guru, and
Thank you.
Everything, it's incredible. I miss this place a lot.